They called Claire Bennett barren, worthless, unfit to carry the Blackwell name. 5 years later, she walked into Mason Blackwell's wedding with 3 children beside her, and every one of them had his eyes. The rain hung over the Lake Forest estate like a warning. White roses covered the gates. Armed men stood beneath silk canopies. Inside, 2 powerful crime families were preparing to unite. Then Claire stepped out of a silver car in a black dress holding the hands of the children Mason never knew existed. This is not just a story about revenge. It is about betrayal, motherhood power, and the price of trusting the wrong family. Stay until the end, because the wedding is only the first secret to fall. Like this video and comment the city or country you are watching from. The gates had opened for Claire because the truth was finally too large to keep outside. 5 years earlier, she had entered the Blackwell world through a different door. Back then, she was 26, newly married, and still foolish enough to believe that love could survive inside a house built on fear. The Blackwell estate had seemed less threatening in summer. Sunlight softened the limestone walls. Roses climbed the iron trellises. From the terrace, Lake Michigan looked like a sheet of blue glass stretching beyond the trees. Mason stood beside Claire on the day she first arrived as his wife. His hand rested lightly at the small of her back. "You are staring," he said. "I am trying to decide whether people actually live here." "They do. It looks like a museum that learned how to hold grudges." A smile touched his mouth. "That is more accurate than you know." He had been different with her then. Quieter, less guarded. In public, Mason Blackwell wore command like a tailored suit. In private, he sometimes burned eggs, forgot where he left his cufflinks, and left handwritten notes on the bathroom mirror when work pulled him away before dawn. "Coffee is in the pot. Do not let my mother schedule your day. I will be home before midnight." The last promise was often broken. The first 2 usually were not. Claire had no powerful family waiting behind her. Her parents had died within 2 years of each other when she was 19. Her father had repaired commercial elevators in Joliet. Her mother had managed the front desk at a dental office. They left Claire a few photographs, an aging sedan, and enough debt to teach her that grief could arrive with invoices. Mason had met her at a charity dinner in Chicago. Claire had been there because the shipping company she worked for had purchased a table. Mason had been there because the Blackwell name was printed on the building. She had spilled red wine on his sleeve. He had looked down at the stain, then at her horrified face. "I can pay for the cleaning," she said. "This jacket has survived worse." That does not sound comforting. It was not meant to. She should have walked away. Instead, she laughed. Mason remembered the sound. 3 months later, he knew which diner she preferred after late shifts. 6 months later, he knew she hated thunderstorms but loved watching them from behind glass. A year later, he asked her to marry him in the empty loading bay of the warehouse where they had first spoken honestly. There were no roses, no orchestra, only fluorescent lights, cold concrete, and Mason holding a ring with the expression of a man asking for something he could not command. Claire said yes before he finished the question. Eleanor Blackwell approved with unusual speed. At the engagement dinner, she raised a glass and studied Claire over the rim. "You have no divided loyalties," Eleanor said. "That is rare." Claire thought it was praise. Later, she understood it was inventory. For the first year of marriage, Eleanor was careful. She invited Claire to lunches, sent dresses before formal events, and corrected her quietly when she used the wrong fork or addressed the wrong man first. Claire tried to learn. Mason tried to shield her when he noticed. At breakfast one morning, a handwritten schedule waited beside Claire's plate. 10 o'clock with the household manager, noon with the family attorney, 3 o'clock with Eleanor. Claire held up the paper. "Did you do this?" Mason looked over his coffee. "No." "Your mother did." "Then ignore it. She lives 30 feet away." 40. That does not make ignoring her easier. Mason leaned back in his chair. "Claire, she schedules everyone because it makes her feel like the earth is still turning." "And is it?" Usually. Claire smiled despite herself. Mason reached across the table and took the schedule from her hand. He folded it twice, then dropped it into his coffee. The paper darkened and sank. "There," he said. "Your day is free." For a while, small acts like that felt sufficient. They were not. The questions about children began after their first anniversary. At first, Eleanor disguised them as concern. "Have you considered a specialist? Has your doctor discussed hormone testing? Does Mason know how long these things can take?" Claire answered politely until politeness began to feel like permission. One night, at a formal dinner attended by 2 judges, a senator, and men whose names never appeared in newspapers, Eleanor turned to Claire between courses. The family cannot survive uncertainty in the succession. The room became quieter without anyone appearing to listen. Claire placed her fork beside her plate. "I did not realize my medical history was part of dinner." Eleanor smiled. "You are sensitive tonight." "No, I am clear." Mason sat at Claire's right. She waited for him to speak. He took a drink of water. That was all. The silence lasted perhaps 3 seconds. Claire carried it for years. Later in their bedroom, Mason loosened his tie while Claire removed her earrings in front of the mirror. "You should have said something," she told him. "I did not want to turn it into a scene." "She made it a scene. My mother talks too much when she is worried. About what? The future." Claire turned from the mirror. "I am not a future she gets to inspect." "I know." "Do you?" His expression tightened. "Do not make this larger than it was." The sentence settled between them. Claire looked at the man she loved and saw perhaps for the first time how quickly he could reduce her pain when acknowledging it threatened the peace of his house. She slept facing the window. 2 weeks later, Eleanor arranged an appointment with Dr. Peter Halden. Claire objected. Mason told her it would be easier to complete the examination than continue arguing about it. Easier for whom, she asked. He did not answer. Halden's clinic occupied the top floor of a private medical building near the Gold Coast. The waiting room contained no magazines. The receptionist greeted Claire by name without asking for identification. Dr. Halden was in his late 50s, silver-haired and smooth in the way of men who had spent decades delivering bad news to wealthy people without ever appearing responsible for it. He asked questions. He ordered blood tests. He performed scans. He spoke in careful phrases about reproductive viability and hormonal irregularities. Claire asked to see the results directly. "You will receive a complete report," he said. 3 days later, the report arrived at the estate before Claire saw it. She found Mason in his office with the pages spread across his desk. He looked as if someone had told him a person had died. Claire stopped in the doorway. "What does it say?" Mason lifted his eyes. She crossed the room, took the report, and read the conclusion. The words blurred. "Severe reproductive impairment. Extremely low probability of viable pregnancy. Further attempts not medically recommended." Claire read the final paragraph twice. "This is wrong." Mason stood. "Claire, I have never had symptoms that support this." Halden reviewed everything. "I want another opinion. My mother already sent the records to someone else." "Who?" He hesitated. "Another specialist." "Name him." "Claire, name him." Mason looked away. The movement was small, but it told her the second opinion did not exist. She put the papers on the desk. "You believed this before you asked me what happened in that room. I believe the report. That is not what I said." He pressed both hands against the edge of the desk. "The family needs certainty." Claire stared at him. "Your family or you?" His silence returned. This time it did not last 3 seconds. It lasted long enough for something inside her to close. The separation agreement arrived 6 days later. Eleanor presented it in the smaller library, the room she used when she wanted cruelty to feel private. The agreement gave Claire a generous settlement, a leased apartment for 1 year, and strict confidentiality terms. It also stated that she had no claim against the Blackwell family, its assets, or any future descendants. Claire looked up from the final page. Future descendants. A standard clause, Eleanor said. For a marriage ending because I supposedly cannot have children. Eleanor's expression did not change. Attorneys prefer completeness. Claire placed the agreement on the table. What happens if I refuse? Eleanor folded her hands. You are intelligent enough not to require details. Is Mason going to speak to me? He has made his decision. I asked whether he was going to speak to me. Eleanor leaned back. Sometimes silence is the clearest answer a man can give. Claire had 48 hours. That evening, she drove away from the estate without telling anyone where she was going. Rain moved across Chicago in thin silver lines. Traffic crawled along Lakeshore Drive. She kept one hand on the wheel and the other pressed against her mouth as nausea rose again. The pharmacy was 20 miles south. Claire bought 2 pregnancy tests, a bottle of water, and a pack of crackers she never opened. She used the restroom of a gas station because she could not bear the thought of taking the tests inside the Blackwell house. The first result appeared almost immediately. Positive. She stared until the blue line seemed to cut the room in half. The second test gave the same answer. Claire sat on the closed toilet lid and listened to the fluorescent light buzz above her. For weeks, she had been told her body was empty. Now every instinct she possessed told her someone had lied. She made an appointment at an emergency clinic under her mother's maiden name. The technician moved the ultrasound wand slowly, then stopped. Claire watched her face. What is it? The technician adjusted the screen. There is more than one. Claire's fingers tightened around the paper sheet beneath her. How many? The technician studied the image. I can confirm 2. There may be a third. It is still early. Claire laughed once. The sound broke in the middle and became a sob. Afterward, she sat in the clinic parking lot with Mason's number open on her phone. She imagined him answering. She imagined telling him. She imagined the silence that might follow. A black sport utility vehicle passed at the far end of the lot. It slowed near the exit. The windows were dark. Maybe it belonged to a patient. Maybe it did not. Claire watched until it disappeared into traffic. Then she closed Mason's number. The Blackwells did not think of children as children. They thought of them as names, alliances, votes, and bloodlines. If Eleanor learned Claire was pregnant, she would not ask what Claire wanted. She would calculate what the pregnancy meant. Mason might defend her. He might not. The uncertainty itself was enough. Claire returned to the estate the next morning. She signed every page. Eleanor watched from across the table. You are making the sensible choice. Claire capped the pen. No, I am making the choice you left me. Those are often the same thing. Only to people who create the trap. Mason did not come to the signing. Claire waited until sunset. When he still did not appear, she packed one suitcase and left through the side entrance. No one stopped her. Within 3 days, she was in Milwaukee. She rented a small apartment above a hardware store under the name Claire Bennett, her mother's maiden name. The pipes knocked at night. The bedroom window looked over an alley. The refrigerator hummed loudly enough to wake her. It was the safest place she had ever lived. 7 weeks before her due date, Claire woke with pain folding through her abdomen. She drove herself to the hospital. By the time she reached the emergency entrance, she could barely stand. The delivery room filled with strangers. Doctors spoke quickly. Machines sounded alarms. Someone asked for the father's name. Claire gripped the bed rail. Leave it blank. Owen was born first. Lily came 4 minutes later. Noah arrived after another 3. For several terrible seconds he made no sound. Claire could not see him. She heard a nurse count. She heard a doctor ask for suction. Then Noah cried. The sound was thin, angry, alive. Claire turned her face toward the ceiling and wept. The triplets spent weeks in neonatal care. Claire moved between 3 incubators in a hospital gown, one hand resting against one clear wall, then another. Owen opened his eyes first, pale blue-gray. Mason's eyes. Lily had them too. So did Noah. Claire stood in the dim unit after midnight while machines breathed and pulsed around them. "You do not belong to anyone who thinks you are property," she whispered. "Not even him." The settlement money lasted 2 years and 8 months. Claire measured its disappearance in rent payments, medical bills, formula, childcare, and nights when 1 fever became 3. She studied freight compliance after the children slept. She learned to trace invoices, identify false vendors, and notice when a shipment existed on paper but not in the physical world. A regional transportation company hired her for an entry-level position. Her manager gave her the accounts no one else wanted. Claire found a billing error that saved the company $40,000. Then she found a shell supplier connected to an internal theft. Within 2 years, she became the person called when numbers refused to behave. At home, life had a different rhythm. 3 cups beside the sink, 3 backpacks by the door. Owen asking why. Lily asking whether promises still counted if adults forgot them. Noah drawing on any surface that remained still long enough. On their 4th birthday, Owen watched another child run into his father's arms at preschool. That night he asked Claire the question she had rehearsed and still was not ready to hear. "Do we have a dad?" Claire sat on the edge of his bed. "Yes. Is he dead?" "No." "Does he know us?" "No." Owen frowned. "Why not?" Claire looked toward Lily and Noah, both pretending not to listen. "He does not know how to find us yet." It was not the truth. It was the smallest version of it that 3 children could carry. The invitation arrived 10 days before Mason's wedding. Cream paper, black ink. The Blackwell seal pressed into the envelope. Claire stood at her post office box and felt the past reach through 5 years of distance. Mason Blackwell and Harper Caldwell. Lake Forest, Illinois. At the bottom, Eleanor had written 1 sentence by hand. "I thought you should see how quickly the world moves on." Claire placed the invitation on her kitchen table. For 6 nights, she walked past it. On the 7th, she opened the locked drawer in her bedroom. Inside were 3 DNA reports, hospital records, birth certificates, and the notes from 2 attorneys who had reviewed every page. Claire had commissioned the tests 6 months earlier after Owen asked why his eyes were different from hers. A hair sample from Mason's longtime barber had provided the comparison. It was not yet court evidence. It did not need to be. It only needed to force the first honest conversation. On the morning of the wedding, Claire dressed the children carefully. Owen wore a dark blue jacket. Lily chose a charcoal dress because she said black looked too serious. Noah complained that his shoes were tight before they were even on his feet. Claire knelt in front of them near the apartment door. "There may be people who act angry when they see us." Lily's eyes narrowed. "Did we do something wrong? No. Then why would they be angry?" Claire looked at the 3 faces Mason had never seen. Because the truth can feel like an attack to people who have spent years hiding from it. She stood, picked up the leather folder, and led them outside. The drive south took a little over an hour. As the Blackwell estate came into view, Claire felt the old fear rise beneath her ribs. She let it rise. Then she drove through it. At the gate, the guards looked from her name to the children's eyes. The radio began to whisper. The iron bars moved apart. Claire took Owen's hand. Lily stepped close to her right side. Noah stared at the white roses climbing the stone wall. Together they walked toward the wedding lawn where Mason Blackwell was waiting beneath an altar built for a future that had never included them. The altar had been built for a future that had never included Claire or the 3 children walking beside her. Now every white rose, every silk chair, and every armed man on the lawn seemed arranged around their arrival. Mason stood beneath the ceremony arch with the leather folder in his hands. For several seconds, he did not open it. He looked at Claire instead. The last time he had seen her, she had been standing in the side entrance of the Blackwell estate with one suitcase and a face so still he had mistaken it for surrender. This woman was not still. She was controlled. There was a difference. 5 years had sharpened the softness from her posture. She no longer waited for permission to speak. She no longer searched his expression for reassurance. Her dark hair was pinned low at the back of her neck, and the black dress she wore seemed less like mourning than armor. The children stood close to her. Owen watched Mason with suspicion. Lily watched everyone. Noah looked toward the fountain as though the wedding were a minor interruption in a much more interesting afternoon. Mason finally opened the folder. The first page carried the name of a private genetic laboratory in Wisconsin. Below it were 4 lines of identification: Claire Bennett, Owen Bennett, Lily Bennett, Noah Bennett. Mason read the conclusion. Probability of paternity exceeded 99.99% for each child. He turned the page. Hospital records, birth dates, gestational age, the date of Claire's admission, the date of the separation agreement. He counted backward once, then again. His fingers tightened against the paper. They were already there, he said. Claire heard him. So was I. The words passed through the nearest circle of guests. Eleanor stepped closer. We will discuss this inside. Claire looked at her. You had 5 years to discuss it privately. This is not the place. You chose the place when you sent the invitation. A quiet movement passed through the crowd. Mason lifted his head. What invitation? Claire reached into her bag and removed the cream-colored card. She held it out. Mason took it from her. He read his own name beside Harper Caldwell's. Then he saw Eleanor's handwriting at the bottom. I thought you should see how quickly the world moves on. Mason looked at his mother. Eleanor's face remained composed. I believed closure would be useful. For whom Claire asked. Eleanor did not answer her. She turned toward Mason. The guests should be moved inside until the documents are examined. Mason closed the folder. No one moves. His voice was quiet, but the lawn obeyed him. The guards stopped. The waiters stopped. Even the wind seemed to fall away from the silk canopy. Mason looked toward Arthur Vale. Council room. Arthur nodded. Dr. Reed and Miles Avery are already on their way. Nolan, too. At the mention of Nolan Pierce, a man near the temporary bar lifted his phone. He was broad-shouldered, dark-haired, and dressed in a charcoal suit with no visible crease. Nolan had served Mason for 12 years. He handled travel security private negotiations and the problems Mason did not want repeated. He met Mason's eyes from across the lawn. Then he looked at Claire and the children. Something unreadable passed through his face. He ended the call. Harper Caldwell came down the rear staircase before anyone could move Claire into the house. She was still wearing the wedding gown. Without the veil, she looked less like a bride and more like a woman arriving at a negotiation where the terms had been changed without her consent. Her father, Grant Caldwell, walked beside her. Grant was 60, heavy through the shoulders, with silver hair cut close and a mouth shaped by decades of saying no before other people finished asking. Harper stopped several feet from Mason. Are they yours? No one tried to soften the question. Mason held the folder at his side. The documents say they are. Did you know? No, Harper looked at Claire. Claire did not lower her eyes. Did you know about me? Harper asked. Yes. And you came anyway. I came because his mother invited me. Harper's gaze shifted toward Eleanor. Eleanor did not move. Grant Caldwell stepped forward. Eleanor, The situation is being verified. That is not an answer. The children's presence was unknown to us. Claire spoke before Eleanor could continue. It was unknown to Mason. The distinction landed exactly where Claire intended. Harper's expression sharpened. You knew Eleanor looked around at the guests. This conversation is not for the lawn. Harper reached up and removed one diamond earring, then the other. She handed them to her cousin without looking away from Eleanor. My father brought half of St. Louis here because you promised certainty. I promised an alliance. You promised there would be no unresolved succession claim. Mason turned toward his mother. You told them that Eleanor's eyes stayed on Harper. It was true when the agreement was drafted. Claire laughed once. The sound carried no humor. It was never true. Grant Caldwell looked at the triplets, then at Mason. No signature is placed on any document today. Eleanor's voice hardened. Grant, this marriage concerns freight terminals, river access, and interests larger than personal embarrassment. Harper turned toward her. Then perhaps you should not have built it on a personal lie. She looked at Mason. Verify the children. He nodded. Harper gathered the front of her gown and stepped away from the altar. The gesture did more than suspend the ceremony. It stripped the day of its illusion. Guests began whispering openly. The Caldwell men moved closer to their leader. The Blackwell soldiers watched them. For the first time, the wedding resembled what it had always been. A truce with flowers. Arthur approached Claire. The children can wait in the west sitting room. Rosa will stay with them. Claire looked through the open doors of the estate. I stay with them. Of course. Mason said her name. She turned. Claire. He looked as though there were too many questions in him and no language available for any of them. She spared him from choosing. Verify the documents first. He nodded. The west sitting room overlooked the lake. Rosa, the Blackwell housekeeper, brought juice crackers and a tray of small sandwiches the children ignored. Noah climbed onto the sofa and pressed his face to the window. Is that the whole lake? No, Rosa said. It keeps going. Where Michigan? Noah thought about this. Can you see Michigan? Not from here. Then how do you know it is there? Rosa smiled despite herself. People have checked. Owen remained beside Claire. He had not let go of her hand since they crossed the gate. Is that man our dad? Claire looked down at him. Yes. Owen studied the closed door. Does he know? He does now. Why did he not know before? The question arrived with no accusation. That made it harder. Claire crouched beside him. Because I did not tell him. Why? Because I was afraid. Owen's face changed slightly. He had never heard his mother admit fear. Of him, Claire looked toward the hallway. Of the people around him. Owen nodded as though he had been given a piece of information and would decide later whether it fit. Lily sat at the small table with a sandwich on a china plate. She had not taken a bite. Are we staying here? No. Good. Why? Lily glanced at the portraits on the wall. They look like they can hear us. Claire followed her gaze. Blackwell men stared down from carved frames, each one photographed with the same expression of inherited certainty. You do not have to be afraid of pictures. I am not afraid. Lily folded her hands in her lap. I just do not like being watched by dead people. Claire almost smiled. A knock sounded at the door. Arthur entered. The laboratory is legitimate. Dr. Reed has reviewed the medical records. Miles has confirmed the dates. Claire stood. And Mason? He wants to speak with you. Alone with me present. No. Arthur considered her. No. If Mason wants to speak to me, he can do it without his advisor translating the room. Arthur's eyes warmed by a fraction. I meant for your protection. My protection is knowing when I am being managed." He accepted the correction. "The council room, then? Just the two of you?" Claire looked at Rosa. "Stay with them." Rosa nodded. "I will not leave this room." Owen tightened his grip. Claire bent close. "I will be inside the house. How long I do not know. 5 minutes? Longer? 10. Claire touched his cheek. "I will come back before you need to worry." He looked unconvinced. "So before 5 minutes?" Claire kissed his forehead and left. The council room had changed little in 5 years. Dark wood covered the walls. A long table stood beneath portraits of men who had built the Blackwell organization through unions, freight contracts, political favors, and violence. Polite society preferred not to see. Mason stood at the far end. The documents were spread before him. Dr. Samuel Reed packed his glasses into a leather case. Miles Avery closed a laptop. Nolan remained near the window. Eleanor sat at the table with her hands folded. Claire stopped inside the doorway. "I asked to speak with Mason alone." Eleanor rose. "This concerns the entire family." Claire looked at Mason. "Then we have nothing to discuss." She turned toward the door. "Wait." Mason's voice stopped her. He looked at the others. "Leave." Eleanor's expression hardened. "Mason. All of you." Nolan closed the folder in front of him. "Mason, the Caldwell representatives are waiting. They can wait." Arthur moved first. Dr. Reed followed. Miles gathered his computer. Nolan remained still for a moment. He looked at Claire, not with anger, with assessment. Then he walked out. Eleanor was last. At the doorway, she turned toward her son. "You are allowing emotion to dictate procedure." Mason met her gaze. "I am correcting 5 years of procedure." Eleanor left. The door closed. Claire and Mason stood at opposite ends of the long table. He looked at the birth certificates again. "Why did you test them 6 months ago?" "They started asking about their father." "You could have called me." "No, you had the results, and you had a telephone for 5 years." His jaw tightened. "I believed you wanted no contact. You believed the version of events that required nothing from you. That is not fair." Claire stared at him. The words seemed to surprise him as soon as he said them. He looked away. "No," he said. "It is fair." Silence filled the room. Claire had imagined this conversation many times. In some versions, Mason begged. In others, he accused. In the darkest versions, he took the children and used the Blackwell name to make her disappear. She had never imagined him standing before her without certainty. "You knew before you signed," he said. "Yes. 3 children. I did not know there were 3 yet." "Why did you not tell me?" Claire moved closer to the table. "Because the family doctor told me I could not have children. Your mother gave me 48 hours to leave. You read the report and never asked whether I believed it. I was told it had been reviewed. By whom, Mason did not answer." "Exactly." He pressed his palms against the table. "I should have asked. You should have looked at me." "I did." "No. You looked at the problem your mother placed in front of you." He lowered his head. The confession came quietly. "I did not know how to choose between you and the family." Claire felt the old wound open, but it no longer controlled her voice. "You chose." Mason lifted his eyes. "Yes. And I built my life inside that answer." He looked toward the closed door. "Were you safe most days? Were the births difficult?" Claire almost laughed. "They were born 7 weeks early. I read that. Reading is not the same as being there." His face tightened. "I know. No, Mason. You do not." The first anger entered her voice. "You did not stand beside 3 incubators and listen for alarms. You did not decide which child to hold when all three were crying. You did not go to work after sleeping 2 hours because rent was due. You did not answer Owen when he asked whether his father was dead. Mason went still. He asked that, "Yes." What did you tell him? That you did not know where we were? His eyes closed briefly. Claire watched the grief move through him. She did not rescue him from it. When he spoke again, his voice was rough. "Do they hate me? They do not know you well enough." The answer hurt him more than hatred would have. He walked toward the window. Outside, workers stood motionless beside the rows of wedding chairs, waiting for orders no one seemed willing to give. Mason looked at the lake. "I want to meet them." "You met them. You know what I mean." "Yes." He turned. "I want time with them. You will not make demands today. They are my children." Claire's expression hardened. "They are not property returned to you after a clerical error." "I did not say that. You said it the way Blackwells say everything, as though naming a claim makes it real." Mason took a breath. "What do you want for them? For everything?" Claire looked at the man she had once loved enough to trust with her future. "I want their lives to remain recognizable." He waited. "They keep the Bennett name. They stay in their school. No one follows them. No armed men appear outside our home. No photographs enter your records without my consent. No one discusses succession in front of them. No one tells them they owe this family anything." Mason listened without interruption. "All contact happens gradually," she continued. "At a place I approve. On a schedule I control. You do not arrive unannounced. You do not send gifts to replace time. You do not use your mother Arthur lawyer's money or fear to change my answer. And custody. You do not ask for it." His eyes darkened. "You cannot expect me to agree to that forever. I expect you to understand why I require it now. They are my children too. Biologically." The word cut. Claire stepped closer. "Being their father is something you will have to become." Mason held her gaze. Then he nodded once. "All right." She had prepared for resistance. His acceptance unsettled her. "All right. Your terms. You have not heard all of them. Then keep going. If anyone connected to this family threatens us, follows us, or tries to remove the children from my care, I take every document I have to federal authorities." Mason's expression did not change. Behind the door, someone shifted. The people outside were listening. Claire raised her voice slightly. "I will not negotiate that." The door opened. Eleanor entered without permission. "You would invite federal agents into this family." Claire turned toward her. "I brought 3 children into this house. The fact that federal agents frighten you more tells me exactly where the danger is." Eleanor's eyes hardened. "They are Blackwells. They are 5. They are heirs. They do not know what an heir is. They will. Not if I can help it." Eleanor looked at Mason. "End this." Mason did not move. "End what?" "This performance." Claire saw the exact moment he understood what his mother expected. She expected him to order Claire into silence. She expected the old choice. Mason looked at the documents, then at Eleanor. "My children remain with their mother." Eleanor's face stayed composed, but something beneath it cracked. "The family must establish protection. Claire establishes the conditions. You are giving a frightened woman control over the Blackwell succession." Mason's voice went cold. "She survived 5 years without us. I am beginning to suspect we are the ones who should be frightened." Eleanor stared at him. Claire felt no triumph, only the strange exhaustion of watching a door close that should never have been opened. A knock sounded. Harper entered with Grant Caldwell and Arthur. She had changed out of the wedding gown. She now wore a cream suit and carried the diamond ring in one hand. Grant looked toward Mason. "We are leaving." Eleanor stepped forward. "The agreement remains viable," No Grant said. "It does not. The personal matter can be resolved." Harper placed the ring on the table. "This is not a personal matter. You presented your family as stable while hiding a direct succession claim. We did not know." Harper looked at Eleanor. "You knew enough to invite the mother." Eleanor's jaw tightened. Harper turned toward Claire. "May I speak with you?" Claire followed her into the adjoining library. The room held rows of unopened wedding gifts. Crystal bowls, silver frames, boxes wrapped in ivory paper, objects purchased for a marriage that had lasted less than a morning. Harper closed the door. "I did not know you existed. I know. I knew Mason had been married. That is not the same thing." "No." Harper looked toward the windows. "My father thinks your appearance may have been arranged to weaken our position. It was not. I told him that." Claire studied her. "Why?" "Because no woman walks into a place like this with 3 children unless every quieter option has failed." The sentence surprised Claire. Harper turned the ring between her fingers. "This marriage was never romantic, I assumed. Mason and I agreed on respect, privacy, and separate lives. It was not love, but it was honest." Claire looked toward the council room. "Honesty is not a stable currency here." "No." Harper set the ring on top of a gift box. "Eleanor approached my father 6 months ago. She pushed for speed. She offered river access she was never supposed to control directly. Why, I do not know." Claire's attention sharpened. "What kind of access? Freight terminals, storage facilities, routes through southern Illinois and Missouri. Did your father verify the assets? He verified the contracts presented to him?" Presented by Eleanor and Nolan Pierce. The name settled in Claire's mind. Harper watched her reaction. "You know something?" "No." "Then why did you look at the door?" "Because people often reveal their importance by appearing where they are not required." Harper almost smiled. "You saved me from a marriage built on a lie. I did not come to save you. Not every rescue is intentional." A man knocked gently. Harper opened the door. Grant waited outside. She looked at Claire one last time. "I hope you understand that my family will protect its interests." "I understand." That was not a threat. It was not comfort either. "No." Harper left. The Caldwell vehicles departed at 3:40 in the afternoon. Claire watched from the west sitting room as 6 black sport utility vehicles rolled down the drive. No one waved. No one slowed. The white wedding canopy remained standing over rows of empty chairs. Rosa helped Lily with her coat. Noah had fallen asleep on the sofa with one shoe missing. Owen sat near the window. "Did the wedding stop because of us?" he asked. Claire picked up Noah's shoe. "The wedding stopped because the adults did not tell each other the truth." "That means yes." Claire looked at him. "You are too young to be this precise." Owen shrugged. Mason appeared in the doorway. All 3 children looked at him. He did not enter. Claire noticed that. He remained at the threshold as though waiting for permission. Noah woke and rubbed his face. "Are you the wedding man?" Mason looked at Claire, then back at Noah. "I was." Noah sat up. "Are you our dad?" The room went still. Mason's throat moved. "Yes." Owen stood. "Did you know Number Mom said that?" Mason nodded. Owen continued. "Why did you not know?" Mason looked at Claire. She gave him nothing. He answered the child. "Because I believed something that was not true and I did not ask enough questions." Owen considered this. "That was not smart." "No," Mason said. "It was not." Lily watched him. "Are you angry? At you? At Mom?" Mason's eyes moved to Claire. "No." Lily did not appear convinced. "Your face looks angry. I am angry at myself." Noah slid off the sofa. Can you be angry at yourself? Yes. Does it help? Mason looked down at him. Not much. Noah nodded, as if this confirmed something important. Claire collected the children's things. We are leaving. Mason's expression changed. Can I speak with them longer? Not today. Claire. Not today. He wanted to argue. She saw it. Then he looked at Owen, Lily, and Noah. He stopped himself. Tomorrow, call Arthur. I have your number. No. You have the number I used 5 years ago. You kept the same one I did not. For the first time that day, a small trace of the woman he remembered appeared in her expression. Not warmth. Dryness. Mason accepted it. Arthur, then. Claire led the children toward the side courtyard. The lawn smelled of wet grass and cut flowers. Workers had begun removing chairs. A man carried away a sign bearing Mason and Harper's names. Noah stopped near the fountain. Can I throw in a coin? Claire searched her bag. Before she found one, Mason stepped closer and held out a quarter. Noah looked at Claire. She nodded. He took it. What do I wish for? Anything you want, Mason said. Noah closed his eyes. Then he threw the coin. It struck the stone rim and fell onto the grass. Noah opened his eyes. Did it still count? Mason picked up the quarter. We can try again. No. Noah took the coin from him. I think wishes should get one chance. He put it in his pocket and walked toward the car. Mason remained beside the fountain. Claire watched the sentence land in him. She did not know whether Noah understood what he had said. Children often found the center of a wound without knowing its name. Claire fastened Noah into his seat. Lily climbed in beside him. Owen stood outside the car and looked at Mason across the courtyard. Are you coming to our house? No, Claire said. Mason answered at the same time. Not today. Owen looked between them. Good. Mason did not react. Claire closed the door. Arthur approached before she reached the driver's side. I need 1 minute. I have 3 exhausted children. This concerns them. Claire looked through the rear window. Noah had already removed the shoe Rosa found. Quickly. Arthur lowered his voice. The family charter requires formal recognition of direct descendants. I know. You read it. During the 6 days I considered whether to come here. Arthur looked almost impressed. Then you know what happens after recognition. A succession review, and a full financial disclosure. Claire glanced toward the estate. Of what reserve accounts, protected assets, debts, long-term obligations, anything that could pass to an heir. Why was that not done when Mason became head of the family? His succession followed the existing line. New direct heirs trigger a different provision. Claire thought of Harper's words. Eleanor had offered access she did not control. She had pushed for speed. She had invited Claire to the wedding. Does Eleanor know about the review? Arthur's silence answered first. Yes, he said. Claire looked toward the second-floor windows. A curtain moved. Then she did not only want me gone. Arthur's face became guarded. What are you thinking? That she needed there to be no children? Because she did not approve of you? Claire shook her head. No, hatred is rarely this organized. Arthur studied her. You believe the report was connected to the finances. I believe people lie most carefully where the truth costs the most. Arthur looked back at the house. The commission meets Thursday. Will the children be recognized? The documents are clear. Clear has never protected anyone in this family. No, Arthur said. But rules sometimes do. Claire opened the driver's door. Rules protected Eleanor for 5 years. Arthur did not deny it. She got into the car. Mason stood beneath the stone arch leading to the courtyard. He did not approach. Claire started the engine. The children's faces reflected faintly in the mirror. Owen watched the estate disappear behind them. Lily held Noah's hand. Noah was asleep before they reached the gate. Inside the mansion, the wedding was dismantled one expensive piece at a time. White roses were carried out in black bags. The champagne was returned to storage. Harper's name disappeared from the seating cards. In the council room, Miles Avery opened the Blackwell reserve accounts. The first account balanced. The second did not. He leaned closer to the screen. A transfer had been made to a corporation in Wyoming, then another transfer to a company registered in Delaware. Neither company appeared in the Blackwell vendor system. Miles opened a second ledger. 53 transactions carried the same authorization code, Eleanor Blackwell's. Nolan stood behind him. How much, Nolan asked. Miles did not answer. He checked the dates. The first transfer had occurred 8 months before Claire's medical examination. The largest transfer had been made 3 weeks before Eleanor arranged Mason's wedding to Harper Caldwell. Miles picked up the telephone and called Mason. Mason answered from the empty ceremony lawn. How bad, he asked. Miles stared at the total forming across the bottom of the screen. Bad enough that the wedding may have been the smallest lie your mother told you. The wedding had been dismantled before sunset. By midnight, the first layer of the Blackwell empire had begun to come apart with it. Mason found Miles Avery in the council room, surrounded by open ledgers, bank records, and 3 computer screens filled with numbers that refused to agree. The white flowers outside were gone. Inside, the air still carried their sweetness. Miles had removed his jacket. His tie hung loose around his collar. He looked less like the financial director of a criminal organization and more like a physician standing over a patient whose condition had become impossible to hide. Mason closed the door. How much? Miles turned one screen toward him. $12.8 million. Mason did not sit. Missing moved. By whom? Miles looked at the authorization column. Your mother. The answer entered the room without drama. It did not need any. Mason stepped closer to the screen. The transfers had begun almost 6 years earlier. Small amounts at first, 50,000, 80,000. Then the numbers increased. 300,000, 500,000. 1 million transferred through a corporation in Wyoming that owned no property, employed no workers, and existed only on paper. The funds moved again through Delaware, then through private accounts in the Caribbean. Mason studied the dates. What were these accounts for? The original reserves your father created, Miles said. Emergency capital, legal defense, political obligations, money that was never supposed to touch daily operations. Who had access? You. Your mother. Your father before he died. And you, I could view them. I could not authorize transfers. Mason looked toward Nolan Pierce, who stood near the far end of the table. Nolan had remained silent since Mason entered. His posture was calm, his expression controlled. Why was this not detected? Mason asked. Miles rubbed one hand over his face. The reserve accounts were exempt from normal review. Your father designed them that way. He did not want every accountant in the organization knowing where the emergency funds were kept. My mother knew. Yes. Mason pointed at the final column. What is Black Harbor Consulting? We are still tracing ownership. Trace faster. Miles did not react to the sharpness in his voice. I already have 2 people on it. Nolan moved closer. The Caldwell agreement would have given us access to additional capital within 30 days. Mason looked at him. Us, the organization. Or my mother. Nolan held his gaze. We do not know enough yet. Mason turned back to the screen. The last large transfer had been authorized 3 weeks before Eleanor arranged his engagement to Harper Caldwell. The amount was $2 million. It had disappeared into Black Harbor Consulting. Find out where the money went, Mason said. Miles nodded. Mason left the room without another word. Eleanor was in her private sitting room on the second floor. She had changed out of the burgundy gown and into a dark silk robe. Her wedding jewelry rested on the table beside an untouched glass of wine. She stood at the window looking over the empty lawn. Workers had removed the chairs, but pale rectangles remained in the grass where the sun had not touched the ground. Mason entered without knocking. Eleanor saw his reflection in the glass. "You should be downstairs." "I was." "Then you know the Caldwell alliance may still be repaired." He placed a printed account summary on the table. Eleanor looked at it. She did not pick it up. 12.8 million, Mason said. Her eyes remained on the page. "That is a preliminary number. It is enough. Enough for what? For you to stop pretending today was about Claire." Eleanor turned toward him. "It was always about Claire." "No." Mason moved closer. "It was about children." Her expression did not change. "The two are connected. The financial review only activates when a new direct heir is recognized." Eleanor folded her arms. "You have been reading the charter. I should have read it 5 years ago. You were grieving." "I was obedient." The word hung between them. Eleanor's face tightened. "Do not confuse trust with obedience. I trusted you because you trained me not to question you. I trained you to survive. You trained me to let you decide who deserved to remain in my life." Eleanor looked away. Mason watched her. The medical report was false. She said nothing. Was it false? The situation required a clean resolution. His voice dropped. "That is not an answer. Claire was not suited to this family." "Was the report false?" Eleanor turned back toward him. She had faced federal agents, rival families, and men who had threatened to bury her beside her husband. None of them had forced this expression onto her face. It was not fear. It was resentment at being made to answer. "Yes," she said. Mason stared at her. The room became painfully quiet. He had imagined the possibility since Claire appeared on the lawn. Hearing it spoken still felt like a physical blow. "You paid Halden." He understood what was required. "You told me she could not have children. I told you what needed to be true." Mason swept the glass from the table. It struck the carpet and rolled beneath a chair without breaking. Eleanor watched it disappear. "You are behaving like a child. My children were born 7 weeks early while Claire was alone. You did not know. Because of you. Because she chose not to tell you." Mason stepped closer. "She chose not to trust me." Eleanor lifted her chin. "That was her decision. It was my failure." For the first time, something uncertain entered Eleanor's expression. Mason continued. "She knew I would come to you. She knew you would decide what happened to her and to the children. She knew I might stand beside you while you did it. You do not know what you would have done." "No." His honesty silenced her. "I do not," he said. "That is why she ran." Eleanor looked toward the dark window. The family was already unstable. Your father was dead. The reserves were under pressure. Men around us were waiting for weakness. You stole from the reserves. I moved funds to preserve our position. You lost them." Her face hardened. "I made investments. With whose money? With money that existed because I kept this organization alive after your father became too sick to lead it. That did not make it yours. It made it my responsibility." Mason pointed toward the account summary. "You arranged my marriage to Harper because you needed Caldwell money. I arranged an alliance that would have strengthened us. It would have covered the missing reserves. It would have bought time. For you. For everyone." Mason shook his head. "You destroyed my marriage to prevent an heir from triggering an audit." Eleanor's silence confirmed more than words could have. He looked at her as though she had become a stranger while standing in the same room where she had raised him. why Claire Eleanor's eyes narrowed. You know why. Say it. She was emotional. Say the real reason. She had no understanding of our world. Mason stepped closer. Say it. Eleanor's control slipped, because no one would come for her. The sentence cut through the room. Eleanor breathed once, then continued with the cold precision of someone who had finally decided that truth was less exhausting than defense. She had no father, no brothers, no family name that carried weight. If the marriage ended, there would be no retaliation, no political consequence, no negotiation. Mason stared at her. You approved of her because she was alone. I approved of her because she appeared manageable. She loved me. Love does not protect an organization. No, Mason said. It only threatens people who cannot control it. Eleanor's face closed again. Mason picked up the account summary. Stay away from Claire and the children. This family has rules. You are no longer responsible for enforcing them. You cannot remove me because you are angry. I am not removing you because I am angry. He walked toward the door. I am removing you because everything you protected has become a threat to my children. Claire received Arthur Vale's call the following morning. She was at her kitchen table in Milwaukee while Owen arranged cereal pieces into 3 exact rows. Lily read the back of a milk carton aloud. Noah had placed a spoon over his nose and was trying to keep it there without using his hands. Claire stepped into the hallway. What happened? The audit confirmed unauthorized transfers. How much? 12.8 million so far. Claire looked through the doorway at the children. Where did it go? We are still tracing it. Who authorized the transfers? Eleanor. Claire leaned against the wall. She had expected theft. Hearing the number made it real. Did she admit the medical report was false? Arthur paused. Yes. And Mason? He knows. Claire closed her eyes. For 5 years, she had lived with the knowledge that the report was false. She had imagined the satisfaction of hearing Eleanor admit it. There was none. Only the old exhaustion of being proven right after the truth had already taken everything it could. Arthur continued. There is something else. Claire opened her eyes. Eleanor chose you deliberately. I know. No. I do not think you know all of it. Claire waited. Arthur's voice lowered. She considered your lack of family protection an advantage. The hallway seemed to narrow. Claire looked at the framed photograph near the front door. Her parents stood beside her at a county fair when she was 16. Her father held a paper cup of lemonade. Her mother had one hand raised against the sun. She chose me because I was alone. Yes. Claire pressed her fingertips against the wall. The memory of Eleanor's engagement toast returned. You have no divided loyalties. Claire had mistaken the sentence for acceptance. It had been confirmation that no one would come looking if the Blackwells removed her. Did Mason know? No. Did you, Arthur, took too long to answer? I suspected she preferred the absence of complications. That is a graceful way to describe it. I did not know about the financial motive, but you knew I was vulnerable. Yes, and you did nothing. Arthur breathed quietly on the other end. I did nothing. Claire looked toward the kitchen. Noah's spoon fell into his cereal. Lily laughed. Owen told him that spoons did not belong on noses. Claire felt the ordinary sound of her children anchor her. I appreciate the honest answer, she said. It is not enough. No. Claire, I am sorry. She did not respond immediately. Apologies had arrived from Blackwell men only after the truth became impossible to ignore. I have spent 5 years living with what all of you failed to do, she said. I'm not going to make you feel better about noticing it now. I did not ask you to. Good. Arthur accepted the boundary. Mason wants to see the children. They are eating breakfast later today. No. A pause. Should I tell him why? Tell him I said no. He needs to learn that a complete sentence does not require an explanation. Claire ended the call. That afternoon, Mason appeared outside her apartment building. He came alone. Claire watched from the second-floor window as he stood beside a black sedan with no driver visible. She called him before he could reach the entrance. "I said no. I am not here to see the children." "Then why are you here to tell you something before Arthur does?" "What my mother's money went to Detroit." Claire's attention sharpened. To whom Victor Rourke? She knew the name. Everyone in freight compliance knew parts of it even if they did not understand the whole. Rourke controlled trucking companies' warehouse contracts and union interests across Michigan. His legitimate businesses appeared on shipping documents throughout the Midwest. The criminal organization beneath them was discussed only in lowered voices. Claire looked toward the living room. The children were watching a cartoon. "Come upstairs," she said. Mason entered the apartment carrying a thin file. He stopped inside the living room. The small space seemed to affect him more than Claire expected. His gaze moved across the crayon drawings, the repaired sofa, the school calendar, and 3 coats hanging from hooks near the door. He looked at the photographs on the wall. 5 birthdays, 5 winters, a trip to the zoo, Owen holding a broken toy airplane, Lily wearing a paper crown, Noah asleep with cake frosting on his cheek. Mason stepped closer to one photograph. He did not touch it. "Where are they?" "In the bedroom." "Do they know I am here?" "No." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. Claire sat in the chair opposite the sofa. Mason placed the file on the coffee table. Eleanor owed Rourke money before the first reserve transfer. "How much?" "We cannot confirm the original number. With interest, possibly $8 million. "What did she borrow it for investments?" "Private ventures. She believed she could make a return before anyone noticed. She lost." "Yes." "And Rourke helped her move Blackwell money." Mason opened the file. His companies received payments through several layers. He knew where the money came from. Claire studied the transactions. The Caldwell wedding was not an alliance. It was both. No, it was a payment system. Mason looked at her. Claire tapped one of the account records. Caldwell freight revenue would have entered shared operating accounts. Eleanor could have replaced the reserves gradually without triggering suspicion. That is Miles's conclusion. She needed enough time to cover the theft before the next review. "Yes, and my children would have forced the review immediately." Mason's face tightened. Claire closed the file. "The report was never about whether I could have children. No, it was about making certain I never did." Mason sat very still. "I am sorry." Claire looked at him. "For which part? All of it? That is too large to mean anything." He absorbed the criticism. Claire continued. "I lived inside that lie for 5 years. I gave birth inside it. I raised 3 children inside it. You do not get to arrive with the truth and turn this room into the place where it becomes finished." "I know." "No. You understand the sentence. That is different." Mason looked toward the hallway leading to the children's room. "Did they ever ask about me?" "Yes." "What did you say? That you did not know where we were?" "That was kind. It was age-appropriate." He looked down at his hands. "If you had called me when you discovered the pregnancy, I want to believe I would have protected you." Claire waited. Mason lifted his eyes. "But I do not know if I would have." The admission removed the air from the room. Claire studied him carefully. "That is the first honest thing you have said to me since I came back. I am trying. Do not try for me. For them, then." "Yes." A faint sound came from the hallway. The bedroom door opened. Noah appeared holding a toy truck. He stopped when he saw Mason. Mason rose. Claire did too. Noah looked between them. "You are the wedding man." "Yes. Mom said you were not coming." "I was not supposed to." Claire gave Mason a warning look. He corrected himself. I came to talk to her. Noah walked closer. About us? Yes. Are we in trouble? No. Are you? Mason looked at Claire. I think so. Noah considered this answer. Then he held up the toy truck. The wheel keeps falling off. Mason looked at Claire again. She did not stop him. He crouched and examined the truck. The axle is loose. Can you fix it? I can try. Noah handed it to him. Claire watched Mason sit on the edge of the sofa with the toy in his hands. His fingers were built for weapons contracts and decisions people feared. Now they struggled with a plastic wheel. After several attempts, it clicked into place. Noah rolled it across the table. It stayed on. You fixed it. Mason's voice softened. Yes. Noah picked up the truck. Do you fix everything? The question entered Mason before he could guard himself. No, he said. Not everything. Noah nodded as though this was reasonable. Then he returned to the bedroom. Mason remained crouched beside the sofa. Claire saw the grief in his face. She did not look away. His phone rang. Mason stood and answered. He listened without speaking. Then his expression changed. What exactly did he say? Claire watched him. Mason turned toward the window. When another pause. Do not respond. I am coming back. He ended the call. What happened? Claire asked. Rourke contacted Nolan. Directly. Through an intermediary. What does he want? The debt paid within 30 days. And if it is not? Mason looked toward the hallway. His voice lowered. He referred to the children as alternative collateral. Claire felt something cold move through her chest. Not panic. Calculation. How much does he want? 10.4 million. Paying him will not end it. I know. Do you? Mason met her eyes. He knows where the children live. Claire stood. How? The succession notice went to the commission this morning. Then someone inside the commission gave him the information. Or someone inside my organization. Claire moved to the window and looked down at the street. A delivery van sat across from the building. A woman pushed a stroller along the sidewalk. A man in a gray coat stood near the corner looking at his phone. Every ordinary detail became a question. Mason moved toward her. I am placing protection outside this building. No. Claire. No armed men near their school or home. This is no longer theoretical. It was never theoretical to me. He threatened them. And your first instinct is to surround us with the same world that created the threat. My first instinct is to keep them alive. Then listen. Mason stopped. Claire turned from the window. You do not know where the leak is. Anyone you send could report our movements. I trust my people. You trusted Eleanor. The words struck him silent. Claire picked up her phone. We are leaving. Where I am not telling you. I need to know. No. You need to know they are safe. Those are not the same thing. His face hardened. They are my children, and I kept them alive before you knew their names. Mason stared at her, then slowly nodded. What do you need? Claire looked toward the bedroom. Time. You have it. Do not follow us. I cannot promise that. Then do not pretend you are respecting my terms. Mason took a breath. I will keep my people away from you, but I need a way to contact you. Arthur can reach my attorney. He accepted the condition. Claire began packing before he left. Clothes went into 3 small bags, medication into another, documents into her leather folder. She told the children they were taking a short trip. Owen watched her movements. This is not a vacation. No. Is it because of him? Claire looked toward the closed front door. Mason is trying to help. Owen's expression remained serious. That is not what I asked. Before Claire could answer, something slid beneath the apartment door. A white envelope crossed the floor and stopped near Noah's shoe. Mason moved first. He opened the door. The hallway was empty. Claire picked up the envelope. Inside was a photograph of Owen, Lily, and Noah leaving school that morning. The image had been taken from across the street. On the back, 6 words had been written in black ink. Blue eyes are expensive in Detroit. The photograph lay on the kitchen table beneath the yellow light. Owen, Lily, and Noah were crossing the street outside their school. Owen had one hand lifted toward the traffic guard. Lily was looking down at a paper in her hands. Noah was turning toward something outside the frame. They looked ordinary. That was what made the image unbearable. The person behind the camera had stood close enough to see Noah's shoelace dragging on the pavement. Claire read the sentence on the back again. Blue eyes are expensive in Detroit. Mason stood near the apartment door with the envelope in his hand. His face had gone still in the way it did when anger had moved beyond expression. How long ago was this taken? This morning. You are certain Noah wore that jacket today. Mason looked toward the bedroom. Wake them. Claire was already moving. She packed without panic because panic wasted motion. 3 changes of clothes went into separate backpacks. Medication went into a small canvas bag. Birth certificates, laboratory reports, school records, and the financial documents from Mason's file went into the leather folder. Mason followed her into the hallway. I have a secure property outside Chicago. No, it is guarded. That makes it visible. No one outside my inner circle knows it exists. Claire stopped. Your inner circle is how this photograph reached my door. Mason absorbed the accusation without resisting it. What do you suggest I have a place? Where you do not need the address. His voice lowered. Claire Rourke knows their school, and someone near you knows enough to give him that information. I am not the leak. I do not know that. The words hurt him. Claire saw it. She did not take them back. Mason looked toward the bedroom. You truly believe I might lead someone to them. I believe you spent your entire life surrounded by people who hide betrayal behind loyalty. I believe you have been wrong about those people before. He looked down. The truth gave him nowhere to go. Claire opened the bedroom door. The triplets were awake. Owen sat upright beneath the blanket. Lily held Noah's hand. Noah stared at Claire with the frightened concentration of a child who had heard adults speaking too quietly. We are leaving, Claire said. Right now, Lily asked. Yes. Why Claire sat on the edge of the bed. There are people trying to scare us. Did we do something, Noah asked. No. Did Mason remained in the doorway? Claire looked at him. He answered. My family made choices that brought dangerous people close to you. Owen watched him. Your family is our family. The sentence settled heavily. Mason stepped into the room but stopped several feet from the bed. You do not have to become like us. Owen frowned. You said us. Mason glanced at Claire. I did. Claire helped Lily into her coat. You can ask more questions after we are safe. Are we not safe now? Lily asked. Claire held her daughter's face between both hands. We are together. That is what matters right now. The children dressed quickly. Noah asked for his toy truck. Owen packed 2 books and a flashlight. Lily placed 3 photographs into her backpack, including one of Claire standing between the triplets on their 5th birthday. Mason carried the bags downstairs. The street appeared empty, but Claire no longer trusted empty streets. She noticed the delivery van across from the building. The engine was off. No driver was visible. Mason noticed it too. He stepped in front of Claire and the children. Back inside. No, Claire said. If someone is watching, they already know we are moving. Mason took out his phone. Claire caught his wrist. "Who are you calling Arthur? How do you know Arthur is safe?" Mason looked at her hand around his wrist. She released him. "I do not," he admitted. Claire opened the rear door of her car. Owen in the middle, Lily behind me, Noah behind the passenger seat. They obeyed without argument. Mason placed the bags in the trunk. "You cannot drive alone. I have done everything alone. This is different. It became different when your world reached my door." He looked toward the building. The delivery van remained still. Claire started the engine. Mason leaned toward the open window. "Send one message when you arrive. No location. Just tell me they are alive." Claire looked at him. For one moment, the man in front of her was not the head of the Blackwell family. He was a father watching his children leave while knowing he had not earned the right to follow. "I will contact Arthur," she said. Then she drove away. She did not take the direct route north. Claire crossed the river, twice changed highways, exited near a shopping center, and waited inside a parking garage for 20 minutes. A gray sedan entered 5 minutes after her. It continued to the upper level. A white sport utility vehicle circled once, then left. Claire watched every mirror. Owen watched her. "Are you trying to lose someone?" "Yes." "Is someone following us?" "I do not think so. That means maybe." Claire looked at him in the mirror. "Yes." Noah pressed his forehead against the window. "I do not like maybe. Neither do I." They left the garage, through a second exit, and drove north toward Wisconsin. The sky darkened over the highway. Rain began near Waukegan. By the time they crossed the state line, the road had become a blurred tunnel of headlights and water. The safe house belonged to a trust managed by Claire's attorney, Daniel Mercer. It sat beyond a narrow county road outside Kenosha, surrounded by bare fields and low trees. The farmhouse was old but maintained. White siding, dark shutters, a detached garage, no visible neighbors. Daniel had purchased it years earlier for witnesses and clients who needed distance without official protection. Claire had never used it. She had hoped she never would. The porch light was on when they arrived. Daniel stood inside the doorway. He was 48, narrow-faced, and dressed in a sweater that looked too expensive for the farmhouse. He opened the door before Claire reached it. "Anyone behind you? I do not think so. That is not an answer. It is the answer I have." Daniel looked at the children. His tone softened. "There are sandwiches in the kitchen." Noah walked past him. "What kind turkey and cheese?" "I do not like mustard." "There is no mustard." Noah nodded. "You planned well." Daniel looked at Claire. "So I have been told." The farmhouse had 2 bedrooms upstairs and 1 downstairs. Claire placed the children in the larger room at the back of the house. They slept in separate beds, but asked to keep the door open. Owen left the flashlight on the nightstand. Lily lined their backpacks beneath the window. Noah climbed under the blanket with his toy truck against his chest. Claire sat between the beds. "Are bad people coming here?" Lily asked. "No one should know where we are." "That is not what I asked." Claire looked at her daughter. Children had an instinct for the difference between comfort and truth. "There are people looking for us," Claire said. "We are taking precautions so they do not find us, because of the money Owen asked." Claire had not told them about the debt. He had heard enough at the apartment to understand more than she intended. "Yes." "How much money?" "Too much." Noah raised his head. "More than $100? "Yes." "More than 1,000? "Yes." His eyes widened. "That is too much." Claire brushed his hair from his forehead. "It is." Lily watched her. "Is Mason dangerous?" Claire considered the answer carefully. He has done dangerous things. That is not the same answer. No. Is he dangerous to us? Claire looked toward the open door. Daniel stood at the end of the hallway, far enough away to offer privacy. I do not believe he wants to hurt you. Do you trust him? Lily asked. Claire breathed slowly. I trust that he wants to protect you. That is not the same answer either. No, Claire said. It is not. The children eventually slept. Claire returned downstairs. Daniel had spread maps, account records, and printed communication logs across the kitchen table. You brought Blackwell documents into my house, he said. I brought evidence. You brought enough evidence to make this house very popular with federal prosecutors. That may be the point. Daniel studied her. You are considering cooperation. I am considering survival. With organized crime, those are often the same decision. Claire sat across from him. The photograph was delivered less than an hour after Mason told me about Rourke's demand. Who knew where you lived? Anyone could find the apartment through public records. Who knew about the children's school? Claire looked at the papers. Mason, Arthur Vale, Miles Avery, Nolan Pierce, the family physician, Eleanor. Eleanor is missing. She knew the school before she disappeared. Daniel tapped one finger against the table. What did she gain by sending the photograph fear? Would fear make you return the children to the Blackwell estate? Possibly. Then she remains a possibility. Claire thought of Eleanor's final look in the council room. The woman had lost control of the wedding, the succession, and her son in a single afternoon. But Eleanor's crimes had been designed to prevent the children from existing inside the family structure. Threatening them now would expose her further. It does not feel like her, Claire said. Feelings are not evidence. I know. Daniel pushed a legal pad toward her. Write every person who knew you might leave. Claire wrote the names. Mason, Arthur, Nolan, Miles, Daniel Mercer. She stopped. You knew. Daniel nodded. Which is why I will not pretend I am outside the test. Claire looked at him. What test? The one you are already designing. She stared at the list, then reached for another sheet of paper. Mason received Claire's message at 2 a.m. The children are safe, nothing else. He read it 3 times. Arthur sat across from him in the council room. Miles remained at the far end of the table, working through accounts. Nolan stood near the window with a phone in his hand. Mason placed his phone face down. She reached the location Arthur asked. She said they are safe. Where? She did not tell me. Nolan turned from the window. That is unacceptable. Mason looked at him. Why, if we do not know where they are, we cannot secure them. Claire believes someone inside this organization is feeding information to Rourke. Nolan's expression remained calm. She told you that? She told me she does not know who to trust, and you accepted it. Mason stood. She kept those children alive for 5 years without us. I am not going to pretend our presence automatically improves their odds. Nolan placed his phone on the table. Rourke's people are experienced. A civilian safe house will not stop them. Then find the leak. Miles looked up from his computer. I may have something. He turned the screen. A company named Pierce Strategic Services had received 9 consulting payments over 3 years. Nolan's face did not change. Mason looked at the name. Related to you. My brother owns it. What services did he provide? Security analysis. To my mother. To several companies. Miles enlarged the transaction history. The payments came from Black Harbor Consulting. The room went silent. Nolan walked closer. That does not prove anything, No Miles said. But Black Harbor also received money from the stolen reserve accounts. Nolan looked at Mason. My brother has clients I do not control. Call him, Mason said. At 2 a.m, you have woken men for less. Nolan picked up his phone. The call went directly to voicemail. He tried again. No answer. Arthur watched him. Where is your brother Naples? Florida. Yes. Miles typed quickly. His passport was used at O'Hare yesterday. Nolan's eyes moved toward the screen. That is impossible. Airlines disagree. Mason stood very still. Give me your phone. Nolan looked at him. Mason, your phone. Nolan placed it on the table. Mason slid it toward Miles. Check every communication from the last month. Nolan's jaw tightened. You are letting panic turn this family against itself. Mason looked at him. No. The family did that before Claire came back. By morning, Claire had a plan. She created 3 false addresses. The first was a lake cottage near Madison. The second was a rented house outside South Bend. The third was an apartment in Rockford. Each location belonged to one of Daniel's corporate trusts. None contained people. Each had a camera system and a vehicle parked outside to suggest occupancy. Claire prepared 3 messages with slightly different wording. She sent the Madison address to Arthur through Daniel. She sent the Rockford address to Miles through a secured account. She gave Mason the South Bend address by phone. Mason listened in silence. You are there now? He asked. Yes. The lie sat cleanly between them. Is it secure? As secure as anywhere can be. I want to send someone. No. One person. No. Claire? If anyone connected to you comes near this house, I leave. Mason breathed quietly. All right. She ended the call. Daniel watched from across the kitchen. You gave Mason the Indiana address. Yes. You believe he might be the leak. I believe trust should be tested when children are involved. What address did Nolan receive? Claire looked at him. He did not receive one directly. Daniel understood. You expect Mason to tell him. If Nolan is as close to him as everyone says, Mason will either tell him or Nolan will find the information. Daniel nodded. And if no one appears, then we learn nothing. At 3 that afternoon, a black sedan stopped near the South Bend property. 2 men remained inside for 12 minutes. A third walked to the rear of the house and photographed the windows. Daniel watched the camera feed with Claire. Her face remained expressionless. Can you identify them? She asked. One is associated with a transport company controlled by Rourke. Claire leaned closer to the screen. The man at the rear door wore a gray coat. She had seen a gray coat near her Milwaukee apartment. Daniel froze the image. Your instinct was correct. Not yet. What more do you need to know how the address moved? She called Mason. He answered immediately. Are the children safe? Yes. Where are you? Not South Bend. Silence. Mason understood. You used the address as a test. Yes. His voice hardened. You lied to me. I protected my children. From me. From whoever you told. He did not answer. Claire continued. Rourke's men arrived at the South Bend house 40 minutes ago. Mason's breathing changed. I told Nolan. Only Nolan Arthur knew I had an address, but not where. Miles, no. Then Nolan is the leak. Mason rejected the conclusion on instinct. You do not know that. I know the address reached Rourke. Nolan has served me for 12 years. So did your mother. The comparison silenced him. Claire lowered her voice. You do not need to believe me. You need to verify it before he learns the real location. Mason looked through the glass wall of his office. Nolan stood outside speaking with 2 security men. All right, Mason said. I will verify it. Do not confront him alone. I have handled traitors before. That is exactly what frightens me. You think I will kill him? I think killing him would destroy the evidence we need. Mason looked at Nolan. What evidence? That Rourke threatened the children. That he knew about the succession. That he used your mother's debt to demand control of Blackwell routes. Nolan may connect all of it. You want him alive for prosecutors. I want him alive because dead men cannot explain how many people they betrayed. Mason ended the call and summoned Nolan to a warehouse office on the south side of Chicago. The building belonged to a legitimate Blackwell freight company. During the day, trucks moved through the loading bays. At night, the office floor stood empty. Nolan arrived at 6:30. He entered alone. Mason waited in the conference room with Arthur and Miles. Nolan looked at the three men. "This appears dramatic." Mason pointed toward the chair. "Sit." Nolan remained standing. "If this concerns the South Bend property, I can explain." Arthur's eyes narrowed. Mason said nothing. Nolan realized his mistake. The address had not been mentioned, not to him directly. His expression changed for less than a second. It was enough. Mason moved toward him. Nolan stepped back. Two security men appeared outside the door. Mason stopped. "Who told Rourke?" Nolan looked at Arthur, then Miles. Neither man spoke. "Mason, listen to me. Who told him you do not understand the position your mother created?" Mason crossed the room and struck him once. Nolan fell against the table. Arthur closed the door. Nolan touched the blood at his mouth. "There he is," he said. "I wondered how long Claire's rules would keep you housebroken." Mason grabbed his jacket and pulled him upright. Arthur said Mason's name. Mason did not release him. His phone rang. "Claire." Arthur answered and placed it on speaker. "Is he there?" Claire asked. Mason stared at Nolan. "Yes. Do not kill him." Nolan laughed. "She tells you how to run the family now." Mason pushed him into the chair. "No," he said. "She is teaching me how to stop running it like my mother." Claire heard the words through the phone. For a moment, no one spoke. Then she said, "Ask him about Black Harbor Consulting." Miles placed account records on the table. Nolan looked at them. "I was paid for information." "What information?" Mason asked. "Shipping schedules, union disputes, political meetings, the children." Nolan's eyes shifted. Mason saw it. He leaned across the table. "You gave Rourke their school." "No." "The apartment, no." "Then who did Nolan wiped blood from his lip?" "Your mother provided the original file." Arthur's expression hardened. What file? Claire's settlement records, her known aliases, the old private investigator reports. Mason looked sick. Nolan continued. "Rourke's people found the apartment through public databases after the succession notice, and the photograph Claire asked through the phone. I arranged it." Mason's hand closed into a fist. Arthur moved between them. "Why?" "Because Rourke wanted pressure." "Against children," Arthur said. "Against Mason." Nolan leaned back. "You think any of this is personal? Rourke has wanted the Blackwell freight corridor for years. Eleanor borrowed money from him. The debt gave him leverage. The children gave him urgency." "How long have you worked for him?" Mason asked. 3 years. Why? Nolan looked at him with something close to contempt. "Because your mother was hollowing out the reserves while you stood in windows and pretended not to see what the family had become. I trusted you. You trusted everyone who made difficult decisions disappear before they reached your desk." Mason flinched. The accusation was cruel because part of it was true. Claire spoke through the phone. Whereas Eleanor Nolan's gaze shifted toward the speaker. "I do not know. Does Rourke know?" "Why did she leave?" "She discovered he planned to take the children whether the debt was paid or not." Mason stepped closer. "How do you know?" "Because he told me to prepare routes out of Wisconsin." Claire's hand tightened around her phone. Daniel stood beside her at the farmhouse table. "How many men?" she asked. 6, possibly 8. "Where I do not know the final staging point." "What vehicles?" Nolan hesitated. Mason reached for him. Claire said, "Do not." Mason stopped. Nolan looked at the phone. 2 freight vans. 1 black sport utility vehicle. Illinois plates on the vans. Michigan on the utility vehicle. Daniel wrote everything down. When Claire asked, "Within 48 hours." Claire looked toward the ceiling. The children were upstairs. "Rourke knows the real location?" "No. Can he find it?" "If anyone calls from that house, possibly." Daniel reached for Claire's phone. She moved away. "This line is secured." "Nothing is completely secure," he said. Nolan laughed softly. "He is right." Claire ignored him. "What else does Rourke have names inside the commission?" "Police contacts. 2 people in federal contracting." "Evidence." Nolan looked toward Mason. "I kept records." Where Mason asked. "A storage unit in Cicero." Mason turned to Arthur. "Send men." "No," Claire said. Mason looked at the phone. "Why not? Because Nolan may be sending you into an ambush." Nolan smiled. Claire continued. "Call federal agents." Mason's face hardened. "This is still my organization. No, this is a kidnapping conspiracy involving my children." The room went silent. Mason looked at Nolan, then at Arthur. "Make the call." Arthur nodded. Nolan's expression changed. He had expected violence. He had not expected exposure. Federal agents reached the Cicero unit before midnight. Inside, they found payment records, encrypted phones, photographs of Blackwell properties, and copies of internal commission notices. One folder contained surveillance images of Claire and the Triplets. Another contained Eleanor's loan documents. The final folder was labeled Bennett Contingency. Mason did not open it. He gave it directly to the agents. Claire met with the federal task force the following morning at an office outside Chicago. Daniel accompanied her. Mason arrived separately with Arthur. The lead prosecutor was a woman named Rebecca Sloan. She was in her early 50s, direct and visibly unimpressed by the Blackwell name. She placed the evidence across a conference table. "You understand that cooperation does not purchase innocence," she told Mason. "Yes. Your organization may be dismantled. Yes. Your assets may be seized. Yes. You may be charged." Mason looked at Claire. "I understand." Rebecca turned toward Claire. "If you enter a formal cooperation agreement, your location and your children's identities become part of a protected federal file. Who can access it?" "A limited team." "How limited?" Rebecca appreciated the question. "Fewer than 10 people initially." "Rourke claims to have contacts." "Everyone claims to have contacts. He found my children within hours of the commission notice." Rebecca leaned forward. "That is why we need your evidence entered before he acts." Claire looked at the documents. "What protection begins when I sign emergency witness security-controlled communications, relocation if necessary? And the children? Covered under your agreement." Mason spoke. "They need protection whether Claire signs or not." Rebecca turned toward him. "They need facts that permit us to act." Claire opened the leather folder. She placed the DNA reports, the false medical record, the photograph, and the account transfers on the table. Then she added Eleanor's invitation. Rebecca looked at the handwritten sentence. "What is this?" "The reason I went to the wedding." The conference room door opened. An agent entered carrying a padded envelope. This arrived for Mrs. Bennett at her attorney's office. Daniel examined the return label. "There is no sender." Rebecca opened it with gloved hands. Inside was a small recording device and a handwritten note. Claire recognized Eleanor's writing. "Rourke will not honor payment. Listen to the final 12 minutes." Rebecca connected the device to a secure computer. A man's voice filled the room. Victor Rourke spoke slowly, almost pleasantly. The recording captured a conversation between him and Eleanor from 8 years earlier. He discussed the first loan, the freight corridor, Mason's future marriage. Then Claire's name. A younger Eleanor said Claire was becoming attached to Mason. Rourke responded that attachment was useful until it became inheritance. Eleanor said there would be no children. Rourke asked how she could guarantee it. The recording stopped for several seconds. Then Eleanor said she had a physician. Claire felt her body become cold. Mason sat beside her without moving. The voice continued. Rourke said that if Claire ever became pregnant, a direct heir could activate the reserve disclosure clause. Eleanor answered that Claire had no family and could be removed quietly. The room seemed to tilt. Claire looked at Mason. His face had emptied. Their marriage had not merely been destroyed after it failed to serve Eleanor. It had been monitored from the beginning as part of a financial risk. Rebecca stopped the recording. "No one leaves this building," she said. Claire's voice came quietly. "There is more." Rebecca looked at her. Nolan said Rourke planned to move within 48 hours. Rebecca stood. "Then we move now." The federal filing began at 4:17 that afternoon. The cooperation agreement required signatures from Claire, Mason, Arthur, and Nolan. Miles submitted authenticated financial records. Daniel provided affidavits regarding the safe houses and false addresses. Rebecca entered the surveillance photograph as proof of intimidation. The electronic system rejected one attachment, then another. A clerk corrected the file name. The clock continued moving. At 5:36, Claire's phone received a message from an unknown number. The picture showed the farmhouse, taken from the road. No text. Claire placed the phone on the table. Rebecca looked at it. "They found us." Daniel stood. "The children are with 2 agents." "How many 2? Claire looked at Rebecca. "That is not enough." Rebecca called the field team. No answer. She called again. Static. Then a voice. Movement near the east field. 3 vehicles. Claire was already gathering her coat. Rebecca blocked the door. "You cannot go there. My children are there. You will create another target. They will be frightened. Claire." Mason stood. "I will go." Claire looked at him. Rebecca shook her head. "No one leaves until the filing is complete." The progress bar on the computer showed 94%. Outside, rain struck the windows. At the farmhouse, Owen woke to the sound of tires on gravel. He crossed the upstairs room and looked through the curtain. A black vehicle had stopped near the detached garage. Lily sat up. "What is it?" Owen turned off the lamp. "Get Noah." Downstairs, one of the agents moved toward the front door. The second agent checked the rear window. 3 men crossed the field. Another remained near the vehicle. The front door shook under a heavy knock. "Mrs. Bennett," a man called. "We are here to discuss Mr. Rourke's property." The agent raised his weapon. Owen led Lily and Noah into the upstairs bathroom. They climbed into the empty tub. Noah held his truck against his chest. "Where is Mom?" "She is coming," Owen said. He did not know if it was true. At the federal office, the upload reached 98%, then stopped. Rebecca called the clerk. Claire stood over the screen. "What happens when it finishes? The evidence receives a federal timestamp. Any action against you or the children after that point becomes interference with protected witnesses." And before Rebecca did not answer, Mason watched the frozen number. "Can Rourke stop it?" "Not from outside the system. Nolan said he had federal contacts." Rebecca looked toward the technical agent. The progress bar remained still. At the farmhouse, the man outside tried the handle. The agent behind the door called out, "Federal law enforcement, step away." Silence followed. Then the front window shattered. Noah covered his ears. Lily pressed herself against Owen. Outside, sirens sounded faintly in the distance. The man at the door turned toward the road. Inside the office, the screen changed. Submission complete. Time received. 5:42 and 11 seconds. Rebecca picked up the phone. "The witnesses are active. Move every unit." Claire closed her eyes once, then opened them. At the farmhouse, the men ran toward their vehicles. Federal cars entered from both ends of the county road. The black vehicle attempted to cross the field and sank into wet ground. Agents surrounded it. The man nearest the porch dropped his weapon. Another tried to reach the tree line. He made it less than 50 yards. When Claire reached the farmhouse 2 hours later, the windows were covered with plastic and the front room smelled of rain and broken glass. She ran upstairs. Owen opened the bathroom door before she reached it. Noah rushed into her arms. Lily followed. Owen remained near the tub. Claire held all 3 children against her. "You came," Noah said. "Yes." Owen looked past her. Mason stood in the hallway. He had not entered the room. "Did you bring the bad people?" Owen asked. Mason answered carefully. "My family gave them a path. Did you stop them?" "Your mother did." Owen looked at Claire. She held his gaze. "We all helped." Mason stepped back from the doorway. Claire noticed. He was learning that love did not always mean moving closer. Sometimes it meant knowing where to stop. Arthur called before dawn. The commission had received Rourke's formal petition. He demanded that Owen, Lily, and Noah be removed from the Blackwell succession on the grounds that Claire had violated family law by cooperating with federal authorities. The representatives would meet at noon. Arthur's voice sounded tired. If the vote supports Rourke, the other families may treat the children as unprotected. Claire stood at the farmhouse kitchen window. Agents moved through the wet field beneath portable lights. Mason sat at the table with Noah asleep against his chest. Lily slept on the sofa. Owen watched the rain. Claire looked at the family Rourke had tried to turn into collateral, then make them say it in the room she told Arthur, make every one of them put his name beside the decision. At 11:58, Arthur Vale entered the commission chamber carrying 3 files and no weapon. The room occupied the upper floor of a private club near the Chicago River. 7 men sat around an oval table beneath dark paintings of ships, railroads, and cities built by people whose names had been removed from the official histories. Victor Rourke was not present. He had sent his attorney and 2 representatives. Arthur placed the first file on the table. It contained the DNA reports. The second held Eleanor Blackwell's financial records. The third contained photographs of the farmhouse, the surveillance image taken outside the school, and the federal timestamp issued 11 seconds before Rourke's men attempted to enter the property. The oldest man in the room, Dominic Rousseau, adjusted his glasses. "Federal evidence does not belong at this table." Arthur remained standing. "Neither do threats against 5-year-old children." Rourke's attorney leaned forward. "Claire Bennett violated commission law when she gave internal records to federal authorities." Arthur looked at him. "Victor Rourke violated every law in this room when he treated recognized heirs as collateral. They were not recognized when the debt was created. They did not exist when the debt was created. The claim was attached to the Blackwell succession." "No," Arthur said. "The claim was attached to Eleanor Blackwell's desperation." Grant Caldwell sat at the opposite end of the table. His presence surprised several men. The Caldwell family had lost a marriage alliance, access to northern freight routes, and the public dignity of leaving a wedding before the ceremony began. Rourke's attorney turned toward him. "You have no reason to defend Blackwell interests." Grant folded his hands. "I am not defending Blackwell interests." "Then why are you here?" "Because Victor Rourke used my daughter's marriage as a mechanism to conceal a theft. He attempted to bring Caldwell Capital into a debt we did not create." Grant looked around the table. "If he succeeds today, every agreement any of us sign becomes worthless. A debt between 2 people becomes a claim against anyone useful enough to threaten." One of Rourke's representatives shifted in his chair. "This is sentiment." Grant's expression hardened. "No, it is business." Arthur opened the DNA file. These children were recognized under the Blackwell Charter before the Federal Cooperation Agreement was signed. He placed the commission notice beside the reports. The succession is valid. Rourke's attorney spoke carefully. Their mother chose the government over the families represented here. Arthur looked at each man in turn. She chose her children. No one answered. Arthur continued. Victor Rourke had 30 days to pursue a financial settlement. He sent men within 48 hours. They photographed a school. They approached a protected residence. They attempted entry after identifying the children as property. He placed 7 sheets of paper on the table, one for each vote. Dominic Rousseau looked down at the blank pages. "What is this?" Claire Bennett asked that every decision be recorded by name. A low murmur passed through the room. Arthur did not move. If anyone believes Owen Lilly and Noah Bennett should be stripped of protection because their mother refused to surrender them to a creditor, write your name beside that decision. No one reached for a pen. Rourke's attorney stood. "This is intimidation." Arthur looked at him. "No. This is accountability." The vote lasted less than 10 minutes. 6 families recognized the children. 1 abstained. No family supported Rourke's claim. The debt was declared personal to Eleanor Blackwell. The attempt to seize the triplets was condemned as an unauthorized act against recognized heirs. Victor Rourke lost the protection of the commission at 12:23 in the afternoon. Federal agents entered his Detroit office at 12:31. He was sitting behind a polished desk overlooking the river when the doors opened. Rourke did not run. He closed the file in front of him and looked at the agents with the patient expression that had frightened people for 30 years. "You are making a political mistake," he said. Rebecca Sloan placed the arrest warrant on his desk. "No. We are documenting a criminal one." The charges filled several pages. Racketeering, money laundering, interstate extortion, conspiracy to kidnap, witness intimidation, financial fraud. Rourke read the first page. Then he looked toward the window. For the first time in years, the city beyond the glass no longer appeared to belong to him. Nolan Pierce signed a cooperation agreement that evening. He provided names, payment records, storage locations, and private communication codes. His testimony connected Rourke to the missing reserves, the surveillance operation, and the plan to take the children. Dr. Peter Halden was arrested at his clinic 2 days later. Federal investigators found payments from an Eleanor-controlled company in his accounts. He surrendered his medical license before the state board could revoke it. When questioned about the false fertility report, he said he had believed he was protecting a powerful family from an unsuitable marriage. Claire heard the statement from Rebecca. She did not feel anger. She felt tired. Men had used the word protection so often that it had become another name for harm. Eleanor surrendered through her attorney on a cold Monday morning. She wore a gray coat and carried no luggage. Reporters waited outside the federal building. She did not look toward them. Mason watched the footage from Claire's living room in Milwaukee. Owen sat on the floor building a bridge from wooden blocks. Lily read beside the window. Noah had fallen asleep with one sock missing. Claire turned off the television. "Do they know?" Mason asked. "They know Eleanor is facing consequences for taking money and helping dangerous people. Do they know what she did to you? Not all of it. Will you tell them when the truth helps them understand their lives? Not when it only helps adults confess." Mason nodded. He had learned not to treat every answer as an opening for another demand. The Blackwell investigation lasted 9 months. Mason surrendered account records, private contracts, political payment lists, and information about freight companies used to hide illegal shipments. The cooperation agreement did not erase his responsibility. It reduced some charges and expanded others. He paid fines large enough to end any illusion that the Blackwell wealth would remain intact. The estate in Lake Forest was sold. The legitimate transportation company entered independent management. Illegal contracts were canceled. Several warehouses were seized. A portion of recovered assets went into restitution funds for businesses and families harmed by Blackwell operations. Arthur resigned from every position he had held for 40 years. Miles remained long enough to complete the financial reconstruction, then accepted a position with a legal freight company in Ohio. Grant Caldwell purchased 2 Blackwell terminals at a federal auction. Harper sent Claire a short note after the sale. "You were right. Honesty was never stable currency in that house." Claire kept the note in a drawer beside the wedding invitation. Mason moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Chicago. The first night he stood alone in the kitchen listening to the refrigerator hum. The rooms held no portraits. No guards waited outside the door. No one entered without knocking. He discovered that silence felt different when it was not maintained by fear. Arthur visited him once. They sat beside unopened boxes. "Do you regret losing it?" Arthur asked. Mason looked around the small living room. "The estate. The organization." Mason leaned forward. "My father called it an inheritance. My mother called it survival. We called it power because debt sounded too ordinary." Arthur studied him. "And what do you call it now, something my children will not have to carry?" Claire visited Eleanor 6 months after the arrests. The meeting took place in a supervised residence outside Springfield while Eleanor awaited sentencing. There were no silk curtains, no marble floors, no staff moving quietly beyond closed doors. Eleanor sat at a plain table wearing a navy sweater. Without the estate around her, she appeared smaller, not weak, human. Claire took the chair across from her. Eleanor studied her face. "You look well." "I am." "The children? Healthy? Do they know who I am? They know you are Mason's mother." Eleanor looked down at her hands. "Do they know I am their grandmother? They know the word. Have they asked to meet me? No." The answer hurt her. Claire allowed it to remain. Eleanor raised her eyes. "I sent the recording. I know." It was the only copy Rourke did not know existed. It helped stop him. "I thought you should know that." "I do." Eleanor waited for something else. Gratitude, forgiveness, recognition. Claire offered none of them. "I protected the children in the end," Eleanor said. "You helped stop a fire you started." Eleanor's mouth tightened. "I did not intend for Rourke to threaten them. You intended to erase the possibility that they would ever exist. I believed I was protecting the family. You were protecting your place inside it." Eleanor looked toward the window. "The difference was not clear to me then. It was clear to everyone you hurt." Silence passed between them. Eleanor folded her hands. "I do not expect forgiveness." "Good." The answer made her look back. Claire continued. "Remorse is not a transaction. You do not hand me one useful recording and receive 5 years of my life in return." "I know. No. You understand the words." Eleanor's expression changed. Claire recognized the sentence she had once given Mason. For the first time, Eleanor appeared to feel what it meant. Claire stood. At the door, Eleanor spoke again. "Will they ever meet me?" Claire rested one hand on the frame. "That depends on who you become when there is nothing left for you to control." She left without looking back. Mason's first supervised visit with the Triplets lasted 40 minutes. He arrived with 3 expensive boxes. Claire looked at them. "What is that, gifts? I can see that." He hesitated. "Should I have brought something else?" "You should have brought yourself." Mason looked toward the children. Owen stared at the boxes. Lily said nothing. Noah asked whether one contained a remote-controlled car. Claire folded her arms. "Return them." Mason did. The following Tuesday, he brought 3 library books and sandwiches from the diner Claire used to visit after late shifts. Owen inspected his sandwich. "You remembered no pickles." Mason looked at Claire. "Your mother told me." Owen put the sandwich down. "That is not remembering." Mason nodded. "No, not yet." Lily watched whether he arrived on time. He did. Every Tuesday, 3 minutes early. Never 5 minutes late. Noah accepted him first. Children sometimes trusted before adults understood what trust could cost. He asked Mason questions while they repaired toys on the living room floor. Were you really in the Mafia? Yes. Did you rob banks? No. Did you hurt people? Mason looked toward Claire. She did not interrupt. Yes, he said. Noah stopped moving the toy car. Why? Because I believed being powerful meant people should be afraid of me. Was that true? No. What does powerful mean now? Mason looked at the child. I am still learning. Owen required more. One evening while Claire prepared dinner, he sat across from Mason at the kitchen table. Why did you not look for us? Mason placed both hands on the table. Because I believed your mother wanted to disappear. Why, because believing that was easier than asking whether I had hurt her. Owen's eyes narrowed. That was selfish. Yes. Mom says sorry does not fix things. She is right. Then what does Mason look toward Claire? She kept cutting vegetables, showing up after you say sorry. Owen considered this. You showed up today. Yes. You have to do it again. I know. Weeks became months. Mason attended a school performance and sat in the last row. He learned that Lily hated being praised in front of other people. He learned that Noah slept with one foot outside the blanket. He learned Owen pretended not to be afraid of storms. During the first summer thunderstorm, Mason found him standing near the hallway window. You should be in bed. I am not scared. I did not say you were. Lightning flashed. Owen flinched. Mason sat on the floor beside him. They watched the rain without discussing fear. Claire saw them from the kitchen. She did not interrupt. Trust entered quietly. It did not announce itself. It appeared in details. Mason stopped asking for additional time. Claire began offering it. He stopped bringing gifts. The children began saving things to show him. A drawing, a spelling test, a rock Noah insisted was shaped like Illinois. One Tuesday evening, Mason repaired a loose cabinet door after dinner. Claire stood beside him. You do not have to do that. I know. That answer used to annoy me. He tightened the final screw. What about now? It still does. He smiled. She almost returned it. After the children fell asleep, they sat at the kitchen table. Mason looked older than he had at the wedding. Not weaker, less protected from himself. I have apologized for believing my mother, he said. I have apologized for signing the papers. Claire waited. But I never apologized for making you believe that telling me the truth was more dangerous than running. The room became still. Mason did not reach for her. That was not only Eleanor's failure, he continued. It was mine. Claire looked down at her hands. For 5 years, she had wanted him to say exactly that. Now the words did not repair the past. They did something smaller. They made the present more honest. I needed to hear you say it without making your mother the subject of every sentence, Claire said. I know. She looked at him. No. I think you are beginning to. The Triplets kept the Bennett name. Their legal inheritance was placed in an independently managed trust. Claire remained their primary parent. Mason received more time gradually earned through consistency rather than blood. The children did not inherit the Blackwell organization because there was no organization left to inherit. They inherited education funds, legal assets, and documents explaining where the money came from. Claire made certain they would someday know that wealth did not become clean simply because it reached innocent hands. One Tuesday evening, Mason stayed for dinner. Owen accused Noah of taking his chair. Lily corrected Mason's understanding of her school project. Noah dropped a fork and announced that gravity had chosen the floor. After dinner, Mason washed the dishes. Claire dried them beside him. Their shoulders touched once. Neither moved away immediately. From the living room came the sound of cushions being dragged across the floor. The children were building a fort. Mason looked through the doorway. I spent years believing inheritance meant giving someone your name. Claire placed a plate in the cabinet. What do you think it means now? What they have to carry because of you. Claire turned toward him. And what you choose to stop carrying. Noah ran into the kitchen. Are you coming next week? Mason looked at Claire before answering. She dried her hands. Tuesday, same time. Noah ran back toward the fort. Mason repeated the words quietly. Same time. It was not forgiveness. It was not a promise that Claire would love him again. It was smaller than either of those things and more difficult to fake. A beginning built from ordinary evenings, from repaired toys, from uncomfortable truths, from showing up after saying sorry. The Blackwell family had once called Claire barren because they believed a woman's worth was measured by what she could give their empire. 5 years later, she returned with 3 children who carried Mason's eyes. She did not bring them back to save the Blackwell name. She brought them back because no family had the right to build its future on their silence. The empire disappeared. The name lost its power. What remained was a small apartment, a noisy dinner table, and 4 people learning to trust a man who had finally stopped asking what he was owed. And one Tuesday at a time, they built the only inheritance Claire had ever wanted for her children. A family no one was forced to belong to.